see this. Yep, this is the real thing. And there are two Christines in the group today. So we are very much dominating. And we'll try oh, Ray, I'm so happy to see you. This is perfect. We have gone live. And so, Christine, you spoke to Cecilia and said, where in Malaysia? And I'm like, oh, this would come from a person who knows it much more than just, oh, I looked at a map one day. And you spoke to that. And then Wayne asked you, why did you make that choice, or what was going on? Can you just kind of repeat that whole part, because Ray missed out on that? And you and Ray are maybe the closest together now that I have moved out of the spot where I used to be a few hundred miles from Patty. So you two are maybe the closest together, but there's a bit of water between you. And so would you say that again so that Ray gets to hear where it was all about Malaysia, where Cecilia is, and the question, why? Why did you do that? And that's when it really expanded. It was like, we're getting to know the other Christine really well. So go ahead and speak to that again.
Look, happy to. Yeah, I had already lived in Japan for 2 years and taught over there, and I loved that. I absolutely adore being an expat, because for me, you not only absorb and be a part of this other culture, but I find the communities really welcoming for expats especially, and I wanted my daughter to experience another culture and learn a second language, because in those days at school she wasn't being taught any other languages, which I think is appalling. And anyway, yeah, so I did 2 years in Japan with Alexa. She turned 10 there and came back to Australia. And then in 2018 I just had itchy feet again. I've traveled a lot, but I want to live somewhere again, so I just got a plane ticket and flew to Penang and lived in Baru-Feringhi in Penang for 3 months, and I just adored it. And I'd probably still be there, except my daughter was having her second baby and demanded I come home. So it was like she told me, she said, "You've gone rogue," and I said, "Yeah, okay."
Oh my goodness. I happened to be at a gathering in person around, I should say the same table. We all have something in front of us because your devices must be sitting on something. So it's kind of like we're at a shared table, but this was one where we could actually, reach out and made sure that we didn't get our cups, our drinks mixed up with each other. And just the conversations that came up, as one gentleman said, my mother-in-law or my grandmother, she was raised in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and she hadn't been back there in decades. And when she went back, just this, I don't want to leave. And then to which a woman who said, I have an adult son, and honestly, he lives to earn money, working, good hard work with his dad, who works good hard work, so that he can just zip out of here and go to a completely different culture anywhere. He wants to go somewhere where there's a mountain. It's got to be Kilimanjaro. It's got to be, somewhere in Nepal. And he just wants to climb a mountain, feel what it's like to have less oxygen and be with people just living, not touristing, just being with them. And that's and I said, I get to talk to people around the globe today. So Christine, let's start with you. I've got you kind of warmed up. So let's start with you. Would you introduce yourself and your endeavors even more so to the people on our screen? We are talking a completely different time for me, and we're all in different time zones. So exciting. And we get to enrich each other, not only with our cultures and our personalities, but also with what it is that we are doing and that we are such advocates in. We're like not content to just let things ride as they are. So Christine, let's start with you because you get itchy feet.
No, I'm to meet everyone here because you're obviously all amazing people. But so I'll be really as brief as I can. My background, I started out doing all sorts of things as I did, but I was PR manager for Jacaranda Press, which is a big publishing company in Australia. And I went and I did all, I work as a barmaid out Western Queensland and did all sorts of things, went teaching and became a literacy specialist, 2 degrees. My BA, I majored in archaeology, which is useless, but I loved it and rode camels up the pyramids and all that. But yeah, and I ended up opening my first restaurant in 1977 at 25 as a female owner chef, and I ended up with 10 successful restaurants, in a row over a period of 25 years, and became very famous in Queensland because I actually started out famous as a kid. I used to sing and dance on TV, and then I was a ballerina and then a professional actress. So and then when I had this restaurant career, and I used to I set up the restaurant for the journalist club, which was really useful. So all the journalists from the big newspaper would ring me up when they needed stories and say, "Have you got a story, Chrissy?" "Yeah, out every time." It was hysterical. And went to Japan and then ended up in Melbourne and working back in teaching and literacy again. And then I was asked to set up a big newspaper in Tassie. So I became a lifestyle and editor-in-chief of a newspaper and interviewed all the politicians and the primary producers who were all amazing. Tassie's an amazing place. And then, I ended up just being a writer for hire. And my bag really is to help other people tell their stories now. That's what I really enjoy. And a client hired me to record and write her dad's memoirs. And the process took Daryl, who was 86 and dying of emphysema, from here to here, and gave him a euphoric final year. And the book we produced had this incredible ripple effect in the family. So and I see so much. I'm obsessed with this because I put both my parents in nursing homes, and they were just stuck in a bed in a room, left to die on Valium. It was disgusting. And my dad died with all his secrets. And my dad was huge. He was head of ASIO, which is like in what do you call ASIO in the US, the FBI. So he was head of that when he retired and was the first policeman in Queensland to have a degree and spoke 6 languages and used to interpret in the courts. And he was amazing, but he died with all his secrets. And when I saw the difference it made, like telling the story, and it was sustainable for Daryl, I am obsessed with, I've spent 5 years developing Remember Press. .com as a publishing and story recording website, and my main focus, even though there's other markets, of course, that my main focus is to get it into every aged care facility in the world, because it not only raises their mental health and well-being when people are suddenly feeling important, they've got a job, they've got purpose, and they're elevated and motivated to tell their stories. It really does. It has this ripple effect, and so that's my focus now. And and look, I've been in 2 incubation cohorts, right, for a startup, one in Tassie and Blackbird Giants, who are the biggest VC or venture capital businesses in Australia. And I faced so much A, sexism, and B, ageism. And so I'm also not frightened to speak up, not frightened to call a spade a spade. I had to tell one young guy the statistics. I said founders over 50 are twice as successful as founders under 30, and so are women founders. So eat my dust.
At the beginning, I heard public school, publishing, and pubs because you were a barmaid.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, she's just out there. Like, just, no, you're wearing flowers, but in the US, we would say wallflower, meaning I just blend in with the wallpaper, and you are nothing like that. You are blossoming and blooming and coming, you are a bouquet. You are a bouquet. And you are just not settled with, yes, they should all be the same size, the same color, the same thing at all. You're just, what else is there? And when I can educate people along the way, even if I do it with a very certainty, a huge certainty in my voice, and let them know, now these are the statistics, eat it. So you do that. My goodness. Okay. Cecilia was...
Sorry, I was just going to say,
yes.
I said to him, I'm 73 and I'm only just getting started on this version and place in my life, so just watch out. I want everyone to speak up, honestly. Let's all encourage other, people, our generations and younger and older, to speak up, really. That's it. Sorry.
Watch out for Christine Green.
Yes. Cecilia, when she said that, you started clapping, and that is what I see on your posts, is that you're saying, do you know what just happened? Someone was upset that a person was being the person that they are, not the person that they used to be. Not because we can't just go freeze frame. I like mom the way that she was a few years ago before changes occurred. Isn't it funny that it is often the younger generation who is saying, I'm sorry, that I'm putting people into pigeonholes, but I think that is a difficulty that a generation younger than myself is saying, but I want them to go back to the way it was. I want them to behave and respond. And I can understand missing that relationship when there's a neurological changes. And I also understand saying, this is who you are now, and this is how you feel at home. We had a little type conversation, with where I ended up saying that the skin looks very healthy on those feet because I have served as, hired into homes, people who it's like, oh, I have learned some of the things that you do, like fully drying between toes, but being so careful with that cloth to make sure that thinning skin isn't damaged, or I'm not creating more of a difficulty after, the feet are nice and clean, especially if the toes are in different positions now. Just making sure that the right things are in the best possible places for comfortable, clean, healthy, dignified skin and feet that can be used in any way. And I just remember those crossed legs on that chair. So that is just it. When someone's just tuning in on one of these, it's like, what is she talking about? Cecilia, it's up to you to help people to understand that my one little vision that I remember from one of your posts, to just understand what you are about. So go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone here on the screen and tell about your endeavors.
Thanks, Christine Smith. Okay, so quite funny. But I like to applaud again, Christine Green. I really enjoy your stories. I can feel your vibe, even though I'm just looking at you on screen. But you have this bubbly, this enormous, very healthy vibe, and I love that. Thank you for sharing your story. Well, I've been I think I've been attracted to the elder care at a very young age. I've been exposed to that. My mom used to kind of pull me along when she does her charity works at church and all that. So I was exposed to that at a very tender age. And I've always enjoyed being with my elders at a tender age because I felt that their stories and their sharings are much more interesting than watching the TV or cartoons and all that. And I have been impressed and amazed by that all my life. So this is my chosen career. What I'm trying to do now, being in the industry for more than 20 years, I was also in Singapore, trained in Singapore once upon a time, many, many eons ago. I started my career as a nurse in Singapore, and I'm quite familiar with Singapore. Wayne, we are actually neighbors, Wayne and myself. We're just next door to each other. But
Oh.
in terms of our, I think, system and our support system, Malaysia and Singapore, we are very, very much far behind. And so, what I'm trying to do, especially in Malaysia, stigma is really huge when it comes to dementia. And that's I don't know where to start in the beginning because I was so overwhelmed by the stories and being involved directly with people living with dementia. I have the advantage of being with them at the ground level and also being as a researcher and working in the health system, but also working with family members, being directly involved. I think allow me this have this opportunity to look at it from a wider, more holistic angle. Because usually when you're researchers, you're just collecting data and you're just trying to merge them together and trying to form a theory and trying to find a conclusion, the findings of the research. But I have the opportunity, I'm right now at my center in Penang, and I have the opportunity of being with them on a day-to-day basis at a very
Yes.
fundamental. And I think that is a very rich experience, and because of that, I'm able to realize that there's a lot of misunderstanding. And you're right, Christine, it's not just the young people, but here in Malaysia, it's everywhere. It's the whole community, whether you're young, whether you're old. And Malaysia, it's very dominated by the medical model. So when you look at dementia from a medical model purely, there's only loss. There's nothing else. We only
Yes.
focus on what the person can't do anymore. So she's not the mom, she can't bake a cake, she can't cook, she can't. So it's always zooming about on that. So when we look at loss purely, our care focus on care is more on taking over. So mom can't cook or take over. Mom make a mess, she cannot do the kitchen anymore. So she's just a body to be cared for. She's just a dementia person, and she can't do this, she can't do that. So she is just sitting there and we'll do everything for you, mom. We do everything for you, dad. You know. So and that is a stigma that has been around. Um, and because of that, there's abuse that is very rampant. We still practice restraints in Malaysia. If you step to any nursing home, it is very common to see residents being restrained physically. And we also, on top of that, use chemical restraint. That's another story. So it is something very rampant. It's something very common. And when I put in my social media, everybody accepts it as, yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. We just want to keep them safe. So that's the best thing that we can do. It is for us, it's for them. And that's been accepted as a norm in Malaysia. So unfortunate. So what I'm trying to do is to challenge that and to create a new culture of care and to create a more inclusive community. So I'm doing strange things in Malaysia. Is rather strange. I'm bringing the creative people, the dancers, the singers, theater people to come together and where we can reimagine dementia and create stories and have moments without bothering about what is right and what is wrong, what the person says or the behavior. Let's just be together and celebrate together as human beings. And it's a tall order. It's a lot of challenges, but I love what I'm doing. If I can make an impact one person at a time, it's one person's life that I'm changing. So that's about what I'm doing.
I'm going to jump right over to Patty because everything you're saying, Patty's like, got it. I've got something. Very true. Medical, not individuals who have made a study of geriatrics or dementia or anything else, but medical has a hard stop when dementia comes in, uncurable, or at least in the UK and in United States, hospice, when hospice is recommended, in other words, this person is not going to recover, that's also a hard stop, so prepare for the death process. That's hospice, or the people that come in to assist in that way. It's just kind of a hard stop, is like, it can't be cured, surgery isn't going to do it, pills aren't going to do it, treatments aren't going to make this stop, they're not going to go into remission. So yes, it needs a person who says there's more to it than just, that's a dementia person. Hands off. It's gone. It's done. They're over with. So, Patty, that's enough blabbering from me. Go for it, Patty.
Hello, everyone. Oh, my goodness. I'm so grateful to be here today. Thank you for Christine and other Christine. Love hearing your story. Very inspiring to, know that no matter what age you're at, you could really make an impact. So really appreciate that. Cecilia, that breaks my heart to hear people being restrained. I mean, that's just, in my world, that's unacceptable. And I'm so grateful that you're there making change, right? Because that's what's needed in the world. I came to dementia from a totally different perspective. I'm a huge fan of Lego. So you can see behind me, all these are little Christmas things are made out of Lego. I got in fact, there's a term for it. When you play with Lego as a child, and then stop playing with Lego and then go back to it as an adult, they call that coming out of the dark ages. So I came out of the dark ages in 2013. And I started building with Lego, and I met the Lego community in 2015, I believe. And I met a lot of people making a living, using Lego bricks and pieces. I did what most people did, and I started working with children, but there's a lot of people working with children on Lego. And I was like, who is not taking advantage of this amazing tool? And I thought to myself, how about seniors, right? And then at the time, I had a friend who owned a memory care community, and I'm like, I have this idea. Can I try introducing Lego to folks who have dementia? And she's like, sure, come on down. So my first experience, I go into her community. They had 6 people around the dining room table. Half of them were in wheelchairs, and the other half not. And I stood in front of the group, and I said, hi, my name is Patty. I'm a Lego artist. I'm here to introduce you to Lego. And not a single person looked up. Not one of them. So I was like, okay, I think I have to do a different approach. So I got down to each person on their level, and I smiled at them. I held their hand and says, hi, my name is Patty. I'm a Lego artist. And they looked at me like, what's that? And I said, let me introduce you to Lego. So what I did was with most of them, or actually, let me talk about Mary, right? I met Mary, did my little speech, and she, she was amazing. I asked her if she was a dog person or a cat person. and she could not. She had lost all capacity for language. Her response was "thank you" with a big smile on her face. And I'm like, okay, well, would you like to play with my little dog here or my cat? She could not even answer that question. So I had given her a Lego flower. I'm sorry, forgot to bring one. She did something that I saw somebody do before. She took the flower upside down, put it on the table, and spun it like a top. I had never seen anybody do that before. And she just smiled, her eyebrows raised, she clapped her hands together like in a pure moment of joy. And I was like, this is amazing, right? And in that moment, in that dining room, like she had done something that was completely unexpected. She probably didn't expect it from herself. And in that moment, I knew that introducing Lego to seniors was going to work. So for the next couple of years, I went to many different memory care communities. I taught people how to build with Lego as a way of, increasing their quality of life, of giving them something to do. The administrators all would call me afterwards and saying, "Oh my goodness, the residents are happier." They all asked me, "When's the Lego lady coming back?" So I loved it. Of course, during the pandemic, all group activities stopped, which broke my heart. So I ended up writing a book of my experience called Brick by Brick Bonding, Tools for Family Care. During that time, when I was writing the book, I saw this terrible stat. The Alzheimer's Association had put out their annual report, and they were saying that the spouses of people with dementia were dying before the person with dementia because they were not taking care of themselves, right? They had promised their spouse that, "Oh, honey, I'm never going to put you in a home. I'm going to take care of you until the very end," not realizing the commitment and the how hard it is to take care of somebody in the mid to late stages of the disease. I think nowadays, because of the pandemic, we are now aware of how important mental health and self-care is, right? Mm-hmm. Self-care is not a luxury. It is important. It is a necessity. So when I started writing the book, I met Loretta Venny on the East Coast, who was doing something similar. She wrote the foreword of my book. I met Laura Wagner, who was a copy editor and a gerontologist who edited my book. And then I met Laura Herman, who also lives in Oregon, who is a dementia care specialist. And when she read my book, she's like, "This is why this activity is so important. Not only is good for fine motor skills and depth perception, creativity, but it gives you an opportunity to reminisce, intergenerational activity." A lot of people talk to me about, "My kids want to play with their grandparents, but we have no idea how to do that collaborative thing." Kids, they see Lego and their minds explode. Lego, and then, the person with dementia are like, "Oh my goodness, what are you building?" They're watching the kids. "How can I contribute to this? Tell me what your story is," or whatever, right? It's a way to engage. So with Laura, we partnered on the book, and now we've partnered and we created ABC Dementia Course and Community for caregivers. ABC stands for Appreciating Behavior Communication in Dementia. Laura is a big proponent about, someone with dementia who has lost their capacity for language is still trying to communicate, right? They might have lost their ability to communicate, but their full emotional well-being is still there. Full range of emotions are still there. I went to a caregiving cafe a couple of months ago, and there was a caregiver there and was saying that her mom was saying there are bugs in her head. And people, like people across the table were saying, oh, maybe she's hallucinating and she needs medication, and all these other things. And I was like, no, please, no. I'm like, does she suffer from dry skin? And she was like, yes. How did you know? I'm like, well, I'm thinking about what is she trying to say by saying she's got bugs in her head. Maybe her scalp is dry, and that's the only way she can express that, right? And she's like, oh my God, thank you. Yes, she has dry skin. I'm going to think about how we can make her scalp less itchy, So it's just, we're, as caregivers, I try to help people understand, what is your person trying to say, right? What's an unmet need that they are trying to communicate, but they've lost the capacity for expressing themselves. So that's what I'm passionate about right now, is really helping caregivers to really take care of themselves. Don't sweat the small stuff, right? Doing the dishes, keeping your house clean, that doesn't matter. What matters is connecting with the person you're taking care of.
Wayne, you've been shaking your head. Understand that? Yes, you're right. Oh my goodness. What a difference. What a difference. If I lost my ability to communicate this way, I'm still having a tummy ache. I'm still wishing that person I love to hug would come visit me. And maybe I'm going to be showing a Lego to someone, and it's like, understand me, or this reminds me of when they came to. I want Patty to come back. Where's the Lego lady? But it isn't coming out here. I'm still here. So Wayne, I would love to hear more. You are surrounded by people. I know what his background is. It's not that room, but he was looking, going, I'd really like to put a filter and get something going on. And I'm thinking that's your hand, and that maybe you were wearing those slacks one day and talking with a group of people. So I'm just going to let you go on with that. And Ray, you're not being ignored. We still have many minutes left. I'm so grateful. So Wayne and then Ray, go right ahead.
Okay. Just amazing to be here. As I told Christine Smith much earlier before we came in, this is my first live stream with all of you, with folks, passionate folks like each of you from abroad, outside of Singapore, that is. Yeah, I mean, I have had live streams, with those in Singapore. So, timing isn't that big an issue, and platforms, like online platforms are fairly similar. Okay, so I do dementia prevention these days. I think what I can I would like to say. These days, I'm really passionate about getting people at risk to know that first, dementia could be prevented, and then learn the approaches to be prevented. And then if they want to further their skills, we can talk about personalizing those prevention approaches or strategies for each person. So that's what I do today, really. I started off as a psychologist, as a counselor, and seeing various issues in the community, relationship issues, mental health, work-related mental health, behavioral health. Then I realized my fellow counselors in Singapore, many counselors and psychologists in Singapore then aren't really using the latest. Even in graduate school, when I learned my clinical psychology skills, I realized that perhaps only half the time our professors then were using the latest or teaching us the latest. And I kind of could understand why that is so in the context of Singapore. Briefly, in Singapore, anyone could call himself a psychologist and have no legal repercussions. Right? That's the situation in Singapore and a few other areas in this region of the world. So then the other thing is there are no required standards, right, for psychological practice, as you can understand. So I realized, okay, one of the ways to further this is to go into research and produce knowledge. So people are not just more aware, but they understand what is good, credible knowledge, not just hearsay and street wisdom. So I went to research, and that is when I started becoming interested in aging and subsequently caregiving. The caregiving spin is really because I have my own caregiving story to tell. I started off as a caregiver at the age of 21 or 20, thereabouts. I cared for my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother. Then she had, I think, a number of conditions, if I recall: arthritis, rheumatism, high cholesterol, diabetes, though she refused to admit it, I think, and a few others, really. So that was my kind of being thrown into the deep ocean. And then I realized, man, the finances are really a huge burden for the family, and I wasn't earning because I was still a student, undergraduate student then. And then my mom could only have the mental capacity to help her mom to a certain extent because my mom was depressed then, right? So being a caregiver made that depression worse, as you can possibly imagine. So my dad was the sole breadwinner of the house then, and he had all of us plus my younger brother to feed. So all 5 of us in the house. So I realized that what I could do is to help my mom a little bit more, so she would be less depressed, or at least feel a little bit less burdened. So that's how I started, as a caregiver, learning all the mechanics and learning how to change diapers, handle the wheelchair, even bathe my grandmother, and I was really uncomfortable with that. I remember as a guy, 21 years old, at home, and so. Fast forward that later, after my grandmother passed on, my mother became diagnosed with cancer of the, I think ovaries, ovarian cancer.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a period of, I think, pain, both mental and physical pain for her. By the time she was diagnosed, she was like stage 3 and very quickly progressed to stage 4. And so long story short, I also became her caregiver. And now I'm a bit more experienced, but also a bit more burdened. And I have job juggle then already. Then my brother also came forward to take a bit of these loads. And then my mother kind of passed on, and kind of interestingly or coincidentally, just at kind of a week after my mom passed on, my dad became frail. He had a stroke, a brain stroke. Yeah, a series of brain stroke, the TIAs, the transient ischemic attacks. And then his movement was restricted. He could no longer work full functionally as he would. And so we become somewhat partial caregivers for him. And eventually he also passed on during COVID, not due to COVID, but due to heart attack. So I came into caregiving really because I have my own story, as a caregiver, and so the angle of my research kind of shifted to caregiver well-being, caregiver depression, burden, health status. You can now understand why that is so. Published my dissertation when I did my PhD on that topic, and so today I realized that among the caregivers, it is the dementia caregivers or carers of dementia patients and people who are mild cognitive impairment, who might be one of the groups that really carry a great burden financially, emotionally, and financially it's a big thing here in Singapore. There is the cost of out-of-pocket cost, and then there is the opportunity cost. The opportunities that are being missed out, right? The younger generation have words like "you only live once," right? So people, miss out things. So fear of missing out, right? The FOMO, FOMO, right?
Yes.
And many other Gen Z language that I pick up along the way as I teach. So So then I realized it would be great if we can really help dementia patients live with dignity. It would be great if we can help their caregivers reduce or lessen the burden. But wouldn't it be better if we could prevent? Wouldn't it be better if we could reduce the numbers going into this funnel that is going down the drain? You know, wouldn't it be better if people start to realize that dementia could actually be prevented? It is not once you get it, you're doomed. It is your destiny. It is not. All right. So today I give talks and trainings around the theme of you could actually defy dementia and you could define your own destiny. Because there are actually ways, and these are scientifically proven evidence-based methods. And the latest research, Lancet Commission, says that 45% of dementia could be prevented. Right, psychosocial, all the basic, essentially all the non-medical causes, all the non-biological causes could be dealt with by a person himself or with the family. So that explains why I do what I do these days. In the last, I would say, I only started veering into this in the last 2 years. I had a chance to work with a dementia research facility and understand some aspects about biomarker research, and then fMRI, all the imaging research, and then gaming and digitized or digitalized gaming cognitive assessment. And all these are useful to me now because they can help just the general people. And if we are 50, we are at risk. So I'm going to be at risk. So I see as my preparing for my own aging now, that if I would help people spread the knowledge about dementia prevention when I'm of that age, when my age-related risk increases, I also have all my other protective factors increase. And I think the best way to spread the word is to be the word yourself, a living testimony. So that really is why I still do what I do today.
There's not a person on the screen whose heart was not going out to you as you described each of these situations, the awkwardness, the pain, the sorrow, the can I help in some way, and champions you and cheers you as you are going, so this needs to change, and this is how I'm going to make that change. It's just a thrill, and it's really an honor to have you just place that out and share that out on your very first time live streaming outside of your home country. This is wonderful.
My pleasure, absolutely.
Yay. Ray, at this point, all the squares have moved around a bit and you are front and center, top of the screen. You get to just tell us everything you want to say. It's yours.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I guess I'm probably equating myself to a grumpy old lady about now, because I'm tired of hearing that not a lot changes. And we've all people in here have been advocating for so many years. I know I have. And that we're still saying the same things. And how cool would it be to kill dementia? But how cool would it be to have communities where people with dementia aren't treated like prisoners or are treated with a real human rights approach to life? And that's been my passion, is about the voice of the person. Not my voice, but the voice of the person, who is so often missing from any discussion. And for me, it's about that transition into aged care, where people almost walk through front doors and they leave their past behind, and they come in and they become what's called a resident, with all its insular singularity. And we use this terrible language of when you lived at home and when you worked and when you had a family. And my old favourite is when you were so beautiful in those photos. Like, at the moment, you're no longer beautiful. And people do it constantly. And how that makes people feel is like, yes, in the past I was something and I was of value. Right now, I'm not. I've become what's called a resident. And the thing about that for me is, we have a saying, a line of policy in Australia called Ageing in Place, which essentially is about you can stay in the home until you die. But I like the idea of just living in place. It's like it should just be another part of life coming into aged care that's not scary, it's not demeaning, that is thoughtful, and that is a human rights-based approach. And instead of writing, activity programs for a generic population that don't exist, and I'll give you an example of that. You could come into any aged care home around the world, because I've been to many homes, and say you like motorbike riding, and we'll say, well, you'll enjoy bingo and colouring in then, because there's no capacity for us to give you motorbike riding. And that for me is awful, because you know what? I'm going to have lots of behaviours when I get into aged care, because I won't want to colour and play bingo. I might want to ride my motorbike. And I think, even locking people away just simply because of a diagnosis. And I'll give you my favourite dementia story. I went into a home, this is several organisations ago, and they locked everything, so that the unit was locked, the cupboards were locked, the behind the counter was locked. It's like, let's lock everything. And I was looking for a key to open a cupboard to make a cup of tea for myself and another resident who was in there. And the resident with dementia said, the key's on top of the fridge. They think we're stupid. And so the resident knew where the keys were, and she'd been watching this, but because she has dementia, we don't give her any value of actually being able to still participate in her life, and we don't think, oh, we might leave it unlocked. No, we better lock it up, because you're a scary person if we don't lock it up. And I think our compliance and regulation is often used as a cop-out, and that was certainly what happened with COVID. COVID just set us back like years. And it's been very hard dragging us back out of the dark age of COVID to enable people, and I hate using the word allow, but to enable people to live their life again as they want to live it. Not as I think you should live it, but as you want to live it. And for me, I always quote a congressman that you've probably heard of, John Lewis, who liked to talk about getting into good trouble. And it's like, let's create some movement here. Let's create some trouble. Let's have the resis rise up. And for me, and my Montessori background is like, okay, so I have to enable that person to be who they want to be. And that idea is still of ambition that we never let older people have. We never say, what do you still want to do? What do you want to be? I mean, they may look at you, Chris, and they may still want to learn a language. They might want to start a business. They might want to, paint their first painting, but we don't offer ambition. It's like, here's bingo and colouring in. We don't engage you to be the person that you could still be. You will only ever be that person you left at the front door when you came in to be a resident. And that, for me, is the real sadness of people coming into aged care. So for me, and I'm really grateful to the organisation I work for now in raising this, what I call a consumer voice, that we now have 100 residents from aged care homes around Australia who meet regularly to discuss, design, collaborate and talk about what aged care should be. Because, we survey people to death. We ask questions, are you satisfied with this, yada, yada, yada. But I just don't think we ask the right questions. And I often think we should ask the questions of, what don't you want? Do you want your pad shown in front of everybody else? Well, no, I don't. Do you want to do the things that you want to do? Well, yes, I do. Do you want the carers just walking on you at any time and not knocking? Well, no, I don't. Because if they did that in my house, I'd be calling the police. But in some ways, and we say it's your home, but we'll still walk in your door and not give you that value that it is your home. And Christine mentioned that her parents died this terribly sad end, which is just awful, that you've come to a point where, sorry, time's up. When you're not quite dead, but time's up. So you can exist. And that's the real sadness for me, and the real injustice for me of what we do that's not right. And when we talk about restraint, there's restraint, the very obvious restraint, and there's the less obvious restraint that we have in our communities. And that is that, you don't want to go out, Bill. It's you might get in trouble out there, Bill. You might get lost, Bill. Don't go out. That to me is restraint as well. It's about having those conversations, and from a Montessori point of view is how can I enable you to do that? You want to go bungee jumping? Right. I'm not going to say no. What I'm going to do is give you information, because often people in aged care lose access to information. So you've let me go now. I know I'm raving. And what I would do is always give them information. Then they can still make a decision. I don't care at what stage of your disease, you are still at a point where, with us enabling you to be able to make a decision, and that we take away. So we wonder why we have people with behaviours. Well, I'm going to be one of them. I'm going to be, if you tell me I can't go out, if you tell me I can't wear what I want, if you don't let me put my makeup on every day, if you don't let me do my hair the way I want it, not the way you think you want it, if you're not going to let me dress up every day, well, I'm going to have behaviours. And like Cecilia's posts, their behaviours are people just wanting to be who they have a right to be, not someone who we think they should be. Okay, I'll stop there.
You waited so long hearing each of them. I thought that was, you had the right to just speak it. And it is coming from so much. You've been aware, and you've been putting the pieces together. And for those on the screen who are not 64 or beyond, it is fun to be, because I'm not over the hill, whatever that hill was that birthday cards say you're over the hill. I'm still summiting the mountain, and I keep turning around and looking at the landscape of life and going, well, all these things, I'm connecting the dots, and I'm finding out, well, this makes more sense. And I'm learning, I'm willing to listen to other people who are saying, but this is another, perspective on ageism. But you could actually be pointing at yourself and saying, I took away their rights. I decided that I was fearful or uncomfortable, and I didn't want that. So therefore, you can't do that. You can't live in a home with stairs, because something terrible will happen and people will blame me, and I don't want that. So you can't have that. That was just somebody shared that other people were saying, why are you keeping your father in a home in your house? Why are you providing him love and interactions and everything in a house with stairs? And it's like, do you need to understand that was Dad's mountain, that he would try, he would work on it, he would have an accomplishment and he would talk about how I'm being careful, and we would just go, sure, Dad, you're just fine. Just like in any circumstance, if something happens, then we'll deal with that something when that something happens. And talking about how Dad's last time climbing those stairs and back down again. And it's like, I always heard that you're supposed to take all the obstacles out and all the possibilities and just go, now the room has been fully padded. Oh, I just put you in a cell. I just locked you down. I just made sure that you don't make any more choices or enjoy something different. It's like, what do you want? I want to stay in this house with those stairs because that's something I can enjoy. And their last day, they summited that mountain. Here I am yabbering on. I am not done with you. All of you, I want more. And we are nearing the end of our hour. So if anybody wants, well, Patty, she knows she's she can come on any old time. Hey, I want to tell something new that we did. We just made a movie or something. It's like, Patty, come on in. So you are all invited to let me know when things are changing. And sorry, husband, we might do something like this again, not too long from now. My husband is the one who makes everything happen. And he has said that it's so important to hear people express how they came to this point, how what they are offering and providing was born of grief, that it came from a situation that they didn't throw themselves into, they were thrown into, that it came from an early age where they just thought, if only I could, and now they are, doing
Can I-
Duplos. Yes,
Christine.
please say something.
Christine wants to say something.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted, apropos Ray's incredible talk. Where are you, Ray? You're obviously Australian. Yeah. Where are you?
I'm in Sydney.
Yeah. In Hobart, Glenview is a big aged care business here, and they have opened, as far as I know, it's the first ever dementia village, and it's called Korangi. If you want to look it up, Koron.
I know Korangi.
Oh, there you are.
I was down in Tasmania a few weeks ago doing a talk.
My God.
We're doing some good things, but it's still about isolating communities. It's still about isolating because of your disease. And I just want us to get to a point of like, oh, you got a bad heart? Okay. You got dementia? Okay. So how can we all coexist? And I love the idea. One of the homes that I managed, I taught other residents without dementia how to support people with dementia. And I came up with the bestest ideas, like super. And so having that whole community work together, to me, was so phenomenal. And that gave the residents without dementia real purpose, thinking, well, how can I make it better for Bill who has dementia? So, that energy around that coexisting is something I'd really love us to get in the space of thinking, is that doable? Yeah, let's look at it.
The value that would be added to the people who do not have a diagnosis of dementia to go, I already know this. I learned about it in 8th grade or something. I know what to do about this. And everyone's like, yes, we just, now my husband has added music saying, you're at the end, honey. I have to make this fit so that it can be rebroadcast at a time that fits better for, let's just say, the UK or something. So I don't like this part of my job. It's the only part of my job I don't like. And that is saying, we've run out of time. My goodness, all of you, this is just fantastic. I'm glad that it gets to be rebroadcast later next month in January. So thank you so much. I have to let him close the curtain, and I'm just going to wave goodbye and just... Y'all can say goodbye any way you want.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.